The bathroom door slammed shut at exactly 8:47 p.m. Sarah Miller pressed her back against the cold tile wall, her waitress uniform disheveled, her hands visibly shaking as three men in expensive suits cornered her in the federal building's ground-floor restroom. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across Derek Thompson's face as he loosened his Armani tie with deliberate slowness. "Your daddy can't help you now," Thompson said, his 6'3" frame blocking any path to the door. The CEO of Titan Security Solutions had the kind of presence that filled boardrooms and intimidated competitors. Thick shoulders, salt and pepper beard trimmed to corporate perfection, and eyes that calculated profit margins in human suffering. "Please," Sarah stammered, her voice barely audible. "I don't understand what's happening. I was just clearing tables." "Cut the act," interrupted Jackson Kane, the lawyer whose Rolex caught the harsh bathroom light. His perfectly styled blonde hair and $1,000 shoes marked him as someone who typically destroyed lives with legal briefs, not physical intimidation. "You heard our entire conversation about the contracts. $50 million worth of classified information." The third man, James Porter, stayed silent by the door. His contractor's badge read Logistics Specialist, but his scarred knuckles and military bearing suggested a different kind of specialty. He pulled out his phone, checking something with practiced efficiency. I didn't hear anything important." Sarah's blue eyes darted between them like a trapped animal's. At 25, she had the kind of forgettable prettiness that made her perfect for service work. Blonde hair in a practical ponytail, minimal makeup, clothes that suggested she shopped at discount stores. "I'm just trying to pay rent. Please, I need this job." Thompson stepped closer, close enough that Sarah could smell his expensive cologne mixed with the whiskey from the VIP table. Contract FTC 2024-789B. The falsified training certifications. The phantom instructors billing the government for services never rendered. "You heard all of it, didn't you?" Sarah's fingers found the edge of the sink behind her, and for just a fraction of a second, so brief that the men missed it entirely, her grip tested its weight and stability. Then she was trembling again, tears forming in her wide eyes. "My dad works upstairs. He's just a janitor. Night shift. If something happens to me, he'll—" "A janitor?" Kane pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. "What's his name?" "Frank. Frank Miller. He cleans the training rooms on the 5th floor." The words tumbled out in a rush of apparent panic, but something in the way Sarah's eyes tracked the distance between the three men was too precise, too calculated, like someone measuring escape routes while pretending to cower. If this terrified girl's plea makes you worried about what happens next, please hit that like button and subscribe to follow her story. And if you find value in these real stories of courage, consider pressing the thanks button just once. It helps us keep bringing you these important accounts. I'm curious, what city or country are you watching from right now? Let me know in the comments below. 5 floors above them, Commander Frank Miller stood before 47 SWAT officers in full tactical gear. The training room's walls were lined with monitors showing various scenarios, weapons configurations, and tactical formations. At 53, Frank had the weathered face of someone who'd seen too much but refused to stop fighting. His gray hair was regulation short, his bearing unmistakably military even after 15 years in civilian law enforcement. "Tonight's exercise simulates a hostage situation in a confined space," he announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd led actual operations in Afghanistan, Iraq, and a dozen classified locations that didn't officially exist. "Remember, smooth is fast, fast is smooth. Violence of action wins the—" A silent alarm blinked on his tactical display. Code 3, staff distress, ground floor. Location, East Wing restroom, adjacent to Ruby's Bar. Ruby's Bar, where Sarah worked. Frank's expression didn't change. Years of combat had taught him to never show emotion during operations. But inside, something cold and dangerous awakened. Scenario change. We have a real-world situation. This is not a drill. The SWAT team shifted instantly from training mode to operational readiness. Weapons were checked, armor adjusted, communications tested. The transformation took less than 90 seconds. 3 unknowns, 1 possible hostage, ground floor east wing. Frank briefed rapidly while pulling up building schematics on his tablet. The bathroom where the alert originated showed as a red dot on the screen. Standard breach protocol, but... He paused, making a decision that would later be questioned in after-action reports. Treat this as a confirmed hostage situation. Move out. Back in the bathroom, Thompson was scrolling through his phone with increasing agitation. There's no janitor named Miller in the building's employee database. Maybe it's under a different name, Sarah offered weakly, letting her body slide slightly down the wall as if her legs were giving out from fear. The movement looked like collapse, but actually improved her tactical position, lowering her center of gravity. Stepfather. He uses different names sometimes for tax reasons. Porter spoke for the first time, his voice flat and professionally disinterested. We're wasting time. She heard everything about the certification fraud. She knows about the instructors who don't exist, the training that never happened. That's conspiracy to defraud the federal government. That's 25 to life for each of us. I don't understand what you're talking about, Sarah protested. But her memory was already cataloging everything with startling precision. Contract FTC 2024-789B. 3 sets of falsified credentials. Monthly billing of $4.2 million. Names, dates, amounts. All filing themselves away in her mind with the efficiency of someone trained to process and retain complex information under stress. Thompson grabbed the front of Sarah's uniform, pulling her forward. The motion should have left her off balance, vulnerable. Instead, she moved with the force, letting it carry her in a way that actually improved her position. None of the men noticed how her feet automatically found stable placement, how her hands stayed protective of her core vital areas. Listen carefully, waitress. You're going to forget everything you heard tonight. You're going to walk out of here, finish your shift, and never speak about this to anyone. Understand? From her pocket, almost imperceptible, came the softest click of a recording device that had been running for much longer than just tonight. Sarah had pressed the activation button under the bar table before being dragged away. Muscle memory from hundreds of hours of training, making the motion invisible even to her conscious mind. The problem, Kane said, looking up from his phone with a disturbed expression, is that I found a Frank Miller in the building directory. But he's not a janitor. The lawyer turned his screen toward Thompson. The federal employee database showed a photograph of Commander Frank Miller, SWAT Division Lead, currently conducting advanced tactical training on Floor 5. Thompson's face went pale. SWAT? Her father runs the SWAT team? No, no, no. Sarah shook her head frantically, tears now streaming down her face. Different Miller. Common name. My dad cleans offices. He doesn't... Shut up! Thompson's mind was racing through implications. The daughter of a SWAT commander just happened to be serving drinks when they discussed their illegal operation. This is a setup. Has to be. Kane was already running facial recognition through his firm's private database. The kind that wasn't supposed to exist, but every major corporation maintained anyway. Sarah Miller, 25, employed at Ruby's Bar for 6 months. Previous employment history. That's odd. There's a gap. 3 years of nothing after college. Sarah's breathing quickened, but not from panic. She was counting. 12 minutes since the silent alarm. SWAT response time from the 5th floor with full gear. 4 minutes prep. 3 minutes descent if they took stairs. 2 if they used the express elevator. Add time for tactical positioning. I took care of my sick mother, she offered quickly, the lie flowing smoothly. She had cancer. I stayed home as her caregiver. Please, I'm nobody important. I just serve drinks and clean tables. Porter moved from the door to the sink, his reflection appearing in the mirror behind Sarah. "Boss, we need to make a decision. If SWAT is upstairs and they get wind of this—" "They won't." Thompson's voice carried the confidence of someone who'd bought his way out of every problem he'd ever faced. "Her father doesn't know she's in trouble. We have time." Above them, Frank Miller's team had split into 3 units. Alpha would take the stairwell, Bravo the elevator. Charlie would set up overwatch on the 2nd floor. But as they moved toward their positions, an unexpected obstacle appeared. 12 men in black tactical vests emerged from offices on the 2nd floor, forming a human barrier across the corridor. They wore contractor badges, but their coordinated movements and professional spacing screamed military training. "Federal training exercise in progress," the lead contractor announced. "This floor is restricted." Lieutenant Martinez, Frank's second-in-command, stepped forward. "We have a Code 3 emergency. Stand aside. No emergency has been confirmed by building security. Please return to your training area." Frank studied the contractors through narrowed eyes. These weren't security guards or typical private military contractors. These were specialists, probably former special operations, and they'd appeared within minutes of the distress signal. Someone had activated them. Someone who knew SWAT would respond. In the bathroom, Thompson's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his expression shifted from worried to calculating. "Change of plans." Sarah noticed the shift immediately. Her trained mind processed the micro-expressions, the body language changes, the way Thompson's hand moved toward his jacket pocket. He'd received instructions. From whom? "The waitress knows too much," Thompson said simply. "Porter, you brought your tools?" Porter produced a military knife from his ankle sheath, the blade catching fluorescent light. "Always prepared." "Wait, please!" Sarah's voice cracked with what sounded like terror, but was actually careful calculation. She needed to stall, to give SWAT time to break through whatever was blocking them. I have something you need to know." Kane raised an eyebrow. "What could a waitress possibly know that we'd care about?" Sarah's eyes darted between them, and for just a moment, so brief they almost missed it, something else flickered in her expression. Not fear, something sharper. "Miranda Roberts." Thompson froze. "What did you say?" "Jennifer Brooks, Lisa Park, Amy Watson." Sarah's voice was still shaky, but each name landed like a precisely aimed arrow. "Young women who worked for companies that bid against you for federal contracts. Each one mysteriously withdrew their testimony after meeting with you. Sarah just revealed she knows about victims from 3 years ago, crimes nobody was supposed to connect. How does a shy waitress know these names? What do you think Sarah is really hiding? Drop your theories in the comments below. The atmosphere in the bathroom shifted. These weren't random names. These were witnesses in a sealed federal investigation from 3 years ago, an investigation that had mysteriously collapsed when key testimony disappeared. "How the hell do you know those names?" Thompson's grip on Sarah's uniform tightened. "I serve drinks. People talk. They think waitresses are furniture, invisible. They say things they shouldn't." Sarah's voice was steadier now, though she maintained her frightened posture. "I've been serving you and your associates for 6 months. You never noticed me before tonight, but I noticed everything." Porter and Kane exchanged glances. This was escalating beyond a simple witness elimination. The waitress had been gathering information. But for whom? "Check her for a wire," Thompson ordered. Kane patted down Sarah's uniform with professional efficiency, finding nothing. Because the recording device in her pocket wasn't a wire, it was a specialized pen that had been documenting everything in the bar for half a year, uploading to encrypted cloud storage every night. 5 floors up, Frank was making a tactical decision that would later be scrutinized by internal affairs. "Override Protocol 7, he commanded. "We go through them." "Sir, that's my daughter is down there." The words came out controlled, professional, but every SWAT member heard the undertone. This wasn't just Commander Miller speaking. This was a father. The team advanced on the contractors. No weapons were drawn, yet, but the message was clear. Move or be moved. The lead contractor spoke into his radio. Control, we have a situation on floor 2. SWAT is not complying with containment protocol. A voice responded through the radio, one that Frank recognized with a chill. Deputy Director Harrison, his own superior. Commander Miller, stand down immediately. This is a federal security exercise. Sir, we have a Code 3 emergency, which hasn't been verified. Return to your training area. That's a direct order. Frank's jaw tightened. Harrison was 400 miles away in Washington. How did he know about a containment protocol for a training exercise? Unless... Continue mission, Frank ordered his team. My authority, my responsibility. The confrontation between SWAT and the contractors was reaching a breaking point. In about 30 seconds, someone would make a move that couldn't be taken back. In the bathroom below, Sarah was running out of time. Porter was moving closer with the knife. Kane was blocking any escape route to the door, and Thompson was making a phone call to someone he referred to only as Control. Yes, sir. The waitress knows about the previous incidents. No, I don't think she's law enforcement, but... Thompson listened, then his face went pale. Understood. He hung up and looked at the other 2 men. New orders. Complete cleanup. No witnesses. Sarah's mind calculated rapidly. 3 opponents. Thompson, physically strong but slow, probably hadn't seen real violence since his college football days. Kane, lawyer, fit from gym work but no actual combat training. Porter, the real threat, military trained, comfortable with violence. The knife came at her in a controlled thrust aimed at her abdomen. What happened next would later require frame-by-frame video analysis to understand. Sarah's body moved with a fluidity that belonged in a combat training video, not a bathroom assault. She redirected Porter's arm with her left hand, while her right found the pressure point at his wrist. The knife clattered to the floor. Her knee came up into his solar plexus with enough force to drop him, but not enough to cause permanent damage. The entire sequence took less than 2 seconds. What the? Kane started to say. Sarah was already moving. The scared waitress facade had evaporated completely. She rolled behind Thompson, using his bulk as a shield while sweeping his legs. The big man went down hard, his head striking the sink on the way down. Not fatal, but enough to ring his bells. Kane backed against the door, hands raised. Wait! I'm not... Department of Justice. Corruption Task Force, Kane said quickly, pulling out a badge from his inner pocket. The shield read, Special Agent Marcus Kane, badge number 4847. I've been undercover in Thompson's organization for 18 months. Sarah studied the badge with the kind of professional assessment that no waitress should possess. Checking the holographic seal, the badge number format, the subtle details that separated real federal credentials from even the best forgeries. If you're DOJ, why didn't you stop this before it escalated? Her voice had completely changed. Gone was the stutter, the fear, the hesitation. This was someone used to interrogation. Because I needed Thompson to reveal his connection to the larger network. The $50 million contract fraud is just the tip. There's a whole... The bathroom door exploded inward. SWAT officers poured in with tactical precision, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Nobody move! Hands where we can see them! Frank Miller was the 3rd man through the door. His eyes found Sarah immediately, standing calmly amid 2 incapacitated attackers, while a 3rd held his hands up showing a federal badge. Sarah! Frank's professional composure cracked for just a moment. Hi, Dad? Sarah's tone was conversational, as if they were meeting for coffee instead of in the middle of a tactical breach. We need to talk. Thompson groaned from the floor, blood trickling from where his head had met the sink. She's not a waitress. Porter was still gasping for breath, curled in a fetal position. His trained fighter's mind was trying to process how a supposedly terrified service worker had neutralized him with moves taught only in advanced combat courses. "Commander Miller," Kane kept his hands visible, badge still displayed. "Special Agent Marcus Kane, DOJ. Your daughter just prevented these men from destroying evidence of a major federal crime." Frank looked between Kane and Sarah. "My daughter is a waitress." Sarah met his eyes steadily. "Not exactly." The SWAT team secured Thompson and Porter with zip ties, while one of the medics checked their injuries. Non-life-threatening but painful. Exactly the amount of force necessary to stop the threat without crossing into excessive. "Clear the room," Frank ordered. "Except you," he pointed at Sarah. When they were alone except for Kane, he asked quietly, "Who are you really?" Sarah pulled out her wallet and removed a hidden compartment. Inside was an ID that made Frank's eyes widen. Formerly Senior Analyst Sarah Miller, FBI Behavioral Analysis Unit. "I resigned 7 months ago." "You were FBI? You told me you were working in marketing after college." "I was protecting you. And myself." Sarah's voice carried weight now, the kind that comes from seeing too much too young. "I was investigating a corruption network that went all the way up the chain of command. When I got too close, my supervisor tried to bury the investigation. When I pushed back, I was given a choice: resign quietly or face fabricated charges." Kane lowered his hands slowly. "You're the analyst who wrote the original report on the federal contractor corruption network, the one that mysteriously disappeared from the system." Sarah nodded. "When official channels failed, I went unofficial. I knew Thompson's organization was connected, so I got a job where his people conducted their off-the-books meetings. Ruby's Bar. For 6 months I'd been recording everything." Frank's expression was unreadable. "6 months? You've been pretending to be a waitress while conducting an unauthorized federal investigation. It wasn't unauthorized. It was parallel." Sarah pulled out her recording pen. "Everything is documented. Every conversation, every deal, every threat, including what just happened here." Above them, something else was happening. The contractors who had blocked SWAT were receiving new orders through their earpieces. Several of them began moving toward the stairwells with purpose. In a control room 3 floors up, Deputy Director Harrison watched multiple security feeds with growing concern. He was supposed to be in Washington, but he'd made an unexpected trip to the facility that morning. On his screen, he could see the bathroom where his carefully orchestrated plan was falling apart. Harrison spoke into his encrypted phone. "Activate Contingency 3. All assets converge on the ground floor. Contain the situation." The man who'd spent 10 years building a corruption network worth hundreds of millions wasn't about to let a waitress and her father destroy everything. Even if that meant eliminating a SWAT commander and his daughter in what would be staged as a training accident gone wrong. Back in the bathroom, Sarah's phone buzzed with an encrypted message. She glanced at it, and her expression darkened. "Dad, we need to move. Now." "What's wrong?" "The person who ordered Thompson to eliminate me. They're not done." She showed him the screen. It was a single line of text from an anonymous number. "Harrison knows. Exit compromised. 2 minutes." Frank's blood went cold. Harrison. Deputy Director Harrison. His superior. The man who had insisted on this specific night for SWAT training, who had arranged for the federal building to be nearly empty except for essential personnel. If Director Harrison is the real puppet master, and both Thompson and Kane are just pieces on his board, what's his endgame? Can Sarah and Frank escape the building before Harrison's private army closes in? The answers are coming in the next few minutes. Sarah was already moving, her mind shifting into tactical mode. "Kane, you're really DOJ?" 18 months undercover. I can prove it." "Then you have federal authority to arrest Thompson and Porter. Do it now. We need them in custody before—" The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, bathing everything in red. The building's security system announced, "Security lockdown initiated. All exits sealed. Please remain in place for safety verification." Thompson laughed from the floor, blood making his smile grotesque. "You have no idea what you've stumbled into, little girl. Harrison owns this building. He owns the contracts. He owns half the Federal Oversight Committee. You think your recording matters? You think your daddy's SWAT team matters?" Sarah knelt beside him, and when she spoke, her voice was deadly quiet. "I think you underestimate what a motivated analyst can accomplish in 6 months. Every document you signed, every payment you authorized, every communication you thought was encrypted. I have it all. Not just recorded, analyzed, cross-referenced, packaged with a bow for federal prosecutors." Porter, still gasping, managed to speak. "Doesn't matter. Harrison will bury it all, like he buried the last investigation." "The last investigation didn't have this." Sarah pulled out her phone and showed them the screen. It was a live stream interface showing 52,000 viewers. "Everything that happened in this bathroom, everything you said about the contracts, the fraud, the witnesses you intimidated. It's been broadcasting live to DOJ servers and backed up to 17 different cloud services in 12 countries. Thompson's face went white. "That's impossible. The building's communications are jammed when security lockdown." "Satellite uplink," Sarah said simply. "Installed it myself 3 months ago. Battery-powered, completely independent of building systems. Your boss Harrison might own this building, but he doesn't own the sky." The sound of boots on stairs echoed through the walls. Many boots, moving fast. The contractors were coming, and they wouldn't be interested in arrests or evidence. They were cleaners, and their job was to make problems disappear. Frank's SWAT team had taken positions around the bathroom entrance, but they were outnumbered at least 2 to 1. Worse, they were in a defensive position with limited exits. "How long until backup arrives?" Sarah asked. Frank checked his tactical display. "Local PD is 20 minutes out. FBI field office may be 15. "We don't have 15 minutes. Kane stood up slowly, keeping his hands visible. "I can help. I've been tracking Harrison's network for 3 years. I know things. Account numbers, safe houses, contact protocols. But we need to survive the next 10 minutes first." Sarah's mind ran through tactical options at lightning speed. 47 SWAT officers, maybe 24 contractors, confined space, limited ammunition, civilians potentially in the building despite the late hour. "Dad, remember the Belgrade scenario?" Frank's eyes widened slightly. Belgrade. A training scenario they'd discussed years ago when Sarah was home from college, fascinated by his work. A tactical withdrawal under fire, using misdirection and the building's own infrastructure against attackers. That was theoretical. Everything's theoretical until it isn't. Sarah was already moving, pulling emergency supplies from the bathroom's maintenance panel. "Kane, can you really access Harrison's network?" "Give me a laptop in 30 seconds. Sarah pulled a tablet from her bag, the same one she'd been using to upload recordings for 6 months. 20 seconds. "Dad, we need your team to—" The first flashbang grenade rolled down the hallway. SWAT training kicked in instantly. Heads turned away, ears covered, mouths open to equalize pressure. The detonation was deafening even with preparation. The contractors rushed forward, using the disorientation to close distance. What followed was not a firefight. Both sides were too professional to start shooting in a federal building full of potential civilians. Instead, it was close-quarters combat between 2 groups of highly trained operators. Sarah didn't participate in the fighting. She couldn't match these professionals in straight combat. Instead, she did what analysts do best. She found the pattern and exploited it. The contractors were using standard breach and clear tactics, but they were assuming SWAT would respond with standard defensive protocols. Sarah grabbed her father's radio. "All units, execute Warsaw variation. Thermal smoke in 3, 2, 1. The SWAT team shifted tactics mid-fight, throwing smoke grenades that filled the corridor with dense, hot clouds. But unlike normal smoke, these were training grenades, designed to simulate chemical weapons. They contained capsaicin irritants that would cause severe but temporary discomfort to anyone not wearing protective gear. The SWAT team had full face masks as part of their training equipment. The contractors didn't. The tide of battle shifted in seconds. Contractors stumbled back, coughing, eyes streaming, their coordinated assault breaking apart. SWAT moved through the smoke like ghosts, systematically taking down opponents with non-lethal force. But Sarah knew this was just buying time. Harrison had more resources, and he was probably watching everything through the building's extensive camera network. They needed to flip the script entirely. "Kane, are you in?" The DOJ agent looked up from the tablet, his eyes wide. "I'm in, but Jesus Christ. Sarah, this is bigger than we thought. Harrison isn't just running contractor fraud. He's got judges, senators, even people in the Pentagon. This corruption network is worth nearly $1 billion. Download everything. We need—" The tablet screen flickered. A face appeared. Deputy Director Harrison himself, joining by encrypted video link from his control room. "Miss Miller, or should I say, former Special Agent Miller. I wondered when you'd surface again after your unfortunate resignation." Sarah faced the screen squarely, no longer hiding behind any pretense. "Director Harrison. Enjoying the show? 52,000 viewers and climbing." Harrison's expression didn't change. "Your illegal surveillance won't hold up in court. Everything you've gathered is inadmissible." "I'm not gathering evidence for court. I'm gathering it for the court of public opinion. Every major news outlet is watching this stream. The FBI director is watching. The Attorney General is watching." Sarah smiled coldly. "You taught me that, remember? When you buried my investigation. You said public perception matters more than legal reality. You have no idea what you're interfering with. This operation goes beyond simple contractor fraud. National security is at stake." "Your bank account is at stake," Sarah countered. "I have your Cayman Islands accounts, your Swiss holdings, the shell companies in Delaware. 3 years of skimming from black-budget operations. You justified it as payment for keeping America safe, but really you were just another criminal with a badge." Frank had been silent, but now he stepped forward. "Harrison, you used me. You put my daughter in danger. That ends now." Harrison laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "Commander Miller, you think your reputation protects you? I own your career. One word from me and you'll be under investigation for excessive force, misuse of resources, conduct unbecoming. Your precious SWAT team will be disbanded." "Try it," Frank said simply. "My team has recorded everything. The contractors you sent to stop us, your orders to contain the situation, this entire conversation. You want to destroy my career? I'll take you down with me." The building shook slightly. Outside, the sound of helicopters grew louder. Multiple helicopters. Harrison's expression finally showed concern. "What did you do?" Sarah held up her phone. "I called some friends. Turns out the FBI hostage rescue team was conducting training exercises just 40 miles away. When they heard a federal facility was under lockdown with SWAT trapped inside and contractors running illegal operations, they decided to join the party. Through the windows, fast ropes deployed from black helicopters. HRT operators in full tactical gear began rappelling down the building's exterior, heading for entry points on multiple floors. "You're finished, Harrison," Sarah said quietly. "The corruption, the murders, the witness intimidation. It's all over." But Harrison had one more card to play. "Porter," he said to the screen, "execute Protocol 7. Porter, still zip-tied on the floor, suddenly writhed and managed to hit a hidden button on his boot. A high-pitched whine filled the air, some kind of electronic device activating. Building's main supports, Porter gasped through his pain. Shaped charges. Not enough to bring it down, but enough to cause a partial collapse. Blame it on structural failure. Everyone in this bathroom dies. Evidence destroyed. Problem solved. The countdown on Porter's boot showed 60 seconds. Frank grabbed Porter by the collar. How do we stop it? Porter laughed, coughing blood. You don't. Only Harrison has the abort code. On the screen, Harrison was already disconnecting. Goodbye, Miss Miller. Your father was a good soldier. Shame about the training accident. The screen went dark. 58 seconds. Sarah's mind raced through options. The charges couldn't be enough to level the building. That would kill too many innocents even for Harrison. But a localized collapse, taking out just this section where all the evidence and witnesses were gathered. Dad, evacuation protocol. Everyone out, now. We can't leave Thompson and Porter. We're not leaving anyone. Sarah was already working on her tablet, fingers flying across the screen. Kane, I need you to access the building's structural monitoring system. What? Why? Because Harrison made a mistake. He gave Porter the trigger, but the charges themselves are connected to the building's maintenance network for safety monitoring. If we can identify which supports are compromised. 45 seconds. Kane worked frantically beside her. Around them, SWAT was evacuating everyone they could, but the lockdown meant exits were limited. The HRT was breaching the building, but they wouldn't reach them in time. Got it, Kane shouted. Northeast corner supports, levels 1 through 3, but I can't disable them from here. Sarah closed her eyes, visualizing the building's layout. She'd studied it for 6 months, memorized every corridor, every maintenance shaft, The old pneumatic tube system. Frank looked at her like she'd lost her mind. The what? This building was constructed in 1962. It had a pneumatic tube system for sending documents between floors. It was decommissioned in the 90s but never removed. The tubes run right past those support pillars. 30 seconds. Sarah grabbed her recording pen, the one that had been documenting everything for 6 months. She pulled it apart, revealing sophisticated electronics inside. This isn't just a recorder. It's a broad-spectrum signal jammer. If I can get it into the pneumatic system and send it to the right location, it might disrupt the detonation signal long enough for bomb squad to disarm them. That's insane, Kane protested. You'd need to know exactly which tube, exactly which floor. Second floor, tube B7. It runs within 3 feet of the main charge cluster. Sarah was already moving, ripping open an access panel that hadn't been touched in decades. The tube system was dusty but intact. 20 seconds. She shoved the device into a carrier capsule and hit the send button. The vacuum system groaned to life, pulling the capsule up into the walls. 15 seconds. Everyone held their breath. The capsule would either reach its destination or get stuck somewhere in 30 years of dust and decay. 10 seconds. A burst of static filled everyone's radios, the jammer activating. 5 seconds. Porter's boot device continued counting down. 3, 2, 1. Nothing happened. The countdown hit 0, but the building didn't shake. No explosion, no collapse. Just silence except for the static on their radios. Signals jammed, Sarah said quietly. The charges can't receive the detonation command. Outside, HRT had breached the building's lockdown. Federal agents poured in from multiple entry points. Within minutes, they'd secured the contractors and established control of the facility. Harrison tried to run. His control room's cameras showed him heading for a private elevator that led to the parking garage where a car was waiting. But he'd forgotten one detail. Sarah had been watching him as much as he'd been watching her. "Third floor, northwest corner," she said into her radio. "Subject is heading for executive elevator bank B." 2 HRT operators were waiting when the elevator doors opened. Harrison didn't even try to resist. He knew it was over. As the building filled with federal agents and crime scene technicians, Sarah finally allowed herself to lean against the wall. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her exhausted and shaking, genuinely this time, not as an act. Frank stood beside her, still in full tactical gear. 7 months, he said quietly. You've been doing this alone for 7 months. Not alone. I had 52,000 witnesses. She showed him her phone. The live stream was still running, comments flooding in from around the world. Support, shock, demands for justice. Kane approached them, his DOJ badge now displayed openly. Miss Miller, Agent Miller, sorry, I'm not sure what to call you now. Just Sarah is fine. I'm not an agent anymore. You might want to reconsider that. Kane held up his phone. I just got off with the Attorney General. She wants to offer you a position, full reinstatement, your choice of assignments, and a formal apology for what happened before. Sarah shook her head. I'm done with official channels that can be corrupted. This worked because I was independent. Then how about a consultant position? Work with us but not for us. Full autonomy, you choose your cases. Before Sarah could respond, Thompson spoke up from where he was being treated by paramedics. His head was bandaged, his hands cuffed, but his eyes burned with hatred. You think you've won? Harrison was middle management. The people above him, the ones really pulling strings, they'll come for you, both of you. Sarah crouched beside him, studying his face with the analytical detachment she'd perfected over years of profiling criminals. Let them come. I'll be waiting. And next time I won't need to pretend to be a waitress. She stood and walked over to Porter, who was being prepared for transport to a federal medical facility. The charges. How many other buildings are rigged? Porter looked at her with something like respect. 17. Major federal facilities across the country, all controlled by Harrison's network. Names and locations, now, or I recommend they put you in general population where Thompson's previous victims might find you. Porter's tough guy facade cracked. He started talking, providing addresses, technical specifications, names of other operators. Each piece of information was recorded, verified, cross-referenced. By dawn, 17 bomb squads were deploying across the country. 137 arrests were made. Bank accounts worth $900 million were frozen. And at the center of it all was a live stream video of a waitress who turned out to be so much more. 3 weeks later, Sarah sat in a congressional hearing room, testifying before a special committee investigating corruption in federal contracting. She wore a simple black suit, her blonde hair pulled back professionally. No more waitress uniform, no more pretending to be weak. Miss Miller, the committee chair began. Your actions, while ultimately beneficial, violated numerous laws regarding surveillance, evidence gathering, and vigilante justice. How do you respond to critics who say you should be prosecuted rather than praised? Sarah leaned toward the microphone. Senator, I tried official channels. I filed reports, submitted evidence, followed every protocol. And what happened? My investigation was buried, and I was forced to resign. Sometimes the system is so broken that you have to work outside it to fix it. That's a dangerous precedent. So is allowing corruption to flourish because the corrupt control the mechanisms of justice. I had a choice. Walk away and let Harrison's network continue destroying lives, or fight back with the only weapons I had: patience, intelligence, and the inability of powerful men to notice a waitress. The senator had no response to that. Later, outside the Capitol, Sarah found her father waiting by the reflecting pool. Frank had aged visibly in the past 3 weeks, the stress of investigations and internal reviews taking their toll, but he stood straight, proud. How did it go? They're not going to prosecute. Too much public support, and besides, most of what I did falls into gray areas they don't want to define legally. They walked in comfortable silence for a while. Cherry blossoms were blooming early, pink petals drifting on the wind like nature's own celebration. "I'm retiring," Frank said suddenly. 30 years is enough. Time to let someone younger take over." Sarah stopped. "Dad, no. This wasn't your fault." "It's not about fault. It's about recognizing when you've become too comfortable, too trusting. I should have seen what Harrison was doing. The signs were there. He fooled everyone. He didn't fool you." Frank smiled, the expression taking years off his face. "My daughter, the waitress who brought down $1 billion corruption ring." Sarah laughed, surprising herself with the sound. "Former waitress, although Ruby's did offer me my job back. Apparently I'm good for business." "Are you going to take Kane's offer? The consultant position?" Sarah considered the question. The DOJ had formalized their proposal. A special position outside the normal hierarchy, answering only to the Attorney General, with the authority to investigate corruption wherever she found it. Maybe. But first, I need a vacation. Somewhere without cameras, recordings, or anyone trying to kill me in bathrooms. Frank chuckled. "I hear Montana's nice this time of year." "Montana sounds perfect." They continued walking, father and daughter, soldier and analyst, two people who'd fought corruption in their own ways and won, at least for now. Behind them, the Capitol dome gleamed in the morning sun, a symbol of democracy that was a little cleaner, thanks to a waitress who refused to stay silent. But as they walked away, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Harrison was a small fish. The ocean awaits. M. She showed it to Frank, who frowned. M? No idea. But whoever they are, they're right. Harrison's network was just one tentacle of something bigger. Sarah deleted the message and pocketed her phone. But that's a problem for another day. The reflecting pool rippled in the breeze, and somewhere in a federal prison, Harrison sat in his cell, wondering how he'd been brought down by someone he'd dismissed as just a waitress. He would have 25 years to figure it out, assuming he lived that long. Men who betrayed billion-dollar networks rarely survived long in prison, even in protective custody. As Sarah and Frank reached the street, a black SUV pulled up. Kane stepped out, still looking every inch the federal agent, despite his cover being blown. "Sarah, Commander Miller, we have a situation." Sarah sighed. "I haven't even officially accepted the position yet." "This can't wait." Kane handed her a tablet showing satellite imagery. "Remember those 17 buildings Porter told us about? We found an 18th, and it's not just rigged with charges. Someone's actively using it as a black site prison." Sarah studied the images. A nondescript warehouse in Baltimore. Heat signatures showing at least 12 people inside. Guard positions that suggested they were keeping people in, not out. "How long have they been there?" "Based on utility records, possibly years." "Sarah, some of these heat signatures, they're too small to be adults." The vacation would have to wait. "Get me a team," Sarah said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd found their purpose. "And Kane, no contractors, only people you trust completely." "Already done. Helicopters waiting." Frank stepped forward. "I'm coming with you." "Dad, you just said you were retiring." "Tomorrow. Today I'm still SWAT commander. And if there are kids in there, you'll need someone who knows how to breach without causing psychological trauma." Sarah nodded. The father-daughter team that had taken down Harrison was about to face something potentially worse. But this time, they wouldn't be alone. This time, they had the full weight of federal authority behind them, and more importantly, they had each other. As the SUV pulled away, heading toward the waiting helicopter, Sarah thought about the text message. M was right. Harrison had been a small fish, and the ocean was vast and dark. But Sarah had learned something important in that federal building bathroom. Sometimes the smallest person in the room could create the biggest waves. The helicopter lifted off, heading toward Baltimore, and whatever horrors awaited in that warehouse. Below, Washington, D.C. sprawled in all its marble glory, a city of power and secrets, where a waitress had reminded everyone that justice could come from the most unexpected places. The helicopter touched down on a restricted helipad 3 blocks from the Baltimore warehouse. Sarah checked her equipment one final time: bulletproof vest, communications gear, and the tablet showing real-time thermal imaging of the building. 12 heat signatures inside, 4 of them significantly smaller than adult-sized. "Remember," Kane briefed the joint FBI SWAT team, "we have no idea what we're walking into. These could be witnesses Harrison was hiding, or something worse." Frank studied the building layout on his tactical display. 2 entry points, loading dock and roof access. "Sarah, you should stay in the command vehicle." "Not happening." Sarah's tone left no room for argument. "Those kids in there might be traumatized. They'll need someone who understands psychology, not just tactics." The warehouse sat in an industrial district that had been abandoned for years, the perfect location for activities that couldn't bear scrutiny. Rusted chains hung from the fence, and the windows had been painted black from the inside. But the satellite dishes on the roof were new, military-grade, the kind used for secure government communications. As they approached, Sarah's analytical mind cataloged details: fresh tire tracks in the decade-old dust, security cameras hidden in what looked like broken lights, a diesel generator humming despite the building supposedly being abandoned. Someone had put serious money into making this place invisible while keeping it operational. The entry was textbook perfect. Flashbangs through the windows, doors breached simultaneously, operators flowing in with practiced precision. What they found inside stopped them cold. "Dear God," Frank breathed. The warehouse had been converted into a sophisticated detention facility. Individual cells lined the walls, each with electronic locks and monitoring equipment. In the center, a control room bristled with computers and communications gear. But it was the occupants that made Sarah's blood run cold. 11 people in various states of malnutrition and psychological distress, and yes, 4 children. The oldest perhaps 12, the youngest no more than 7. But these weren't random victims. "Sarah Miller?" A woman's voice, weak but clear, came from one of the cells. "Is that really you?" Sarah approached slowly, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. The woman was thin, hollow-eyed, but familiar. Agent Patricia Chen. Patricia Chen had been an FBI analyst, one of the best in the Bureau. She disappeared 3 years ago while investigating financial irregularities in federal contracting. The official report said she'd suffered a mental breakdown and vanished. 3 years, Patricia whispered through the bars. "Harrison kept us here 3 years. Sarah turned to the team. "Get these cells open, now, and get medical here immediately." As the tactical team worked on the locks, Sarah moved from cell to cell, recognizing more faces. Whistleblowers who'd supposedly fled the country. Investigators who'd allegedly committed suicide. Even a journalist who'd been declared dead in a car accident. All alive, all imprisoned, all with one thing in common. They'd gotten too close to Harrison's network. The children were the hardest to understand, until one of them, a boy who couldn't have been more than 10, spoke up. "Our parents tried to stop the bad men, so the bad men took us." Leverage. Harrison had been using children as leverage to keep their parents silent. The depth of the evil made Sarah's stomach turn. But something was wrong. The facility was too clean, too well maintained for something Harrison had been running alone. The computers were still active, files being automatically deleted even as the FBI's digital forensics team tried to preserve them. "This deletion protocol started 40 minutes ago," the tech specialist reported. "Right when Harrison was arrested." Sarah's mind raced. Someone else had access to this facility. Someone who'd been watching, waiting, ready to clean up if Harrison fell. Her phone buzzed. Another message from M. "You found my gift. The children were never part of the plan. Harrison exceeded his authority. Consider this a professional courtesy. Kane, we have a problem. Harrison wasn't running this alone. Someone else. An explosion rocked the building. Not the charges Harrison had planted, something else. Smoke began pouring from the control room as incendiary devices destroyed every piece of electronic evidence. "Everyone out, now!" Frank commanded. The evacuation was chaos, but controlled chaos. Operators carried those too weak to walk. Sarah grabbed the youngest child, a girl who couldn't stop crying, and ran for the exit. Behind them, the warehouse became an inferno. Decades of criminal evidence turning to ash. Outside, emergency vehicles were already arriving. Patricia Chen grabbed Sarah's arm as medics tried to lead her to an ambulance. "The Prometheus files," she said urgently. "Harrison mentioned them, said they were insurance. Hidden in—" A medic injected her with a sedative before she could finish, her traumatized state making her a danger to herself. As Sarah watched the warehouse burn, she realized they'd won a battle, but revealed a war they didn't even know they were fighting. Harrison's network hadn't just been about money, it had been about control, leverage, power at levels that made $1 billion look like pocket change. 3 months later, the trial of the century began. The federal courthouse in Washington had been transformed into a fortress, with security that rivaled presidential inaugurations. Harrison, Thompson, Porter, and 43 other defendants faced charges ranging from fraud to kidnapping to attempted murder. Sarah sat in the witness gallery, no longer testifying but observing. She'd spent weeks giving depositions, her 6 months of recordings forming the backbone of the prosecution's case. But it was Patricia Chen's testimony that truly shook the courtroom. Harrison wasn't just stealing money, Patricia testified, her voice steady despite her ordeal. He was selling intelligence, classified military contracts, witness protection locations, undercover agent identities. He had buyers in Beijing, Moscow, Tehran. The prosecutor held up a document. "Agent Chen, do you recognize this? It's a list of CIA assets in Eastern Europe. Harrison sold it to Russian intelligence for $50 million. Those agents are all dead now." The courtroom erupted. This wasn't just corruption anymore, this was treason. Harrison's lawyer tried to object, to claim the evidence was obtained illegally, but the judge overruled him. The live stream Sarah had conducted, while unconventional, had been ruled admissible because she'd been acting as a private citizen, not a government agent. During a recess, Sarah stepped outside for air and found Kane waiting. "We found something," he said quietly, "in Harrison's personal effects. A single business card, blank except for an M embossed in gold." Sarah pulled out her phone, showing him the messages she'd received. "Our mysterious friend has been busy." Friend might be generous. Whoever M is, they knew about the warehouse, knew about the children, and only acted when Harrison got caught. They're not a good Samaritan. They're protecting something bigger. Before Sarah could respond, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered carefully. "Hello? Miss Miller." The voice was processed through a modulator, impossible to identify. "You may call me M. I believe it's time we spoke directly." Sarah gestured frantically to Kane, who started trying to trace the call. "You've been watching me," she said. "I've been watching everyone. Harrison was a useful tool until he became a liability. His greed and cruelty drew too much attention. You did me a favor by removing him. Those children were never supposed to be involved. Harrison exceeded his parameters. I've ensured their families will be compensated and protected. Who are you? Someone who understands that true power isn't about money or fear. It's about information, influence, and patience. Harrison forgot that. Don't make the same mistake." "Is that a threat?" "It's advice. You're talented, Miss Miller. Your skills could be very useful to someone with vision. The position you've been offered with the DOJ, take it. Clean up the messes, catch the criminals, Be the hero. But remember, there are levels to this game you haven't even imagined yet. The line went dead. Kane looked up from his tracing equipment, shaking his head. The call had bounced through 17 countries in 30 seconds, impossible to track. The mysterious M just revealed they're operating at a level beyond Harrison's network. They knew everything, controlled everything, and they're still out there. Who do you think M really is? Government? Foreign power? Or something else entirely? Share your theories below. Back in the courtroom, the trial continued. Thompson took the stand, trying to cut a deal by revealing every dirty secret he knew. Names, dates, amounts, crimes that spanned decades. Each revelation sent shockwaves through Washington. Senator Matthews took $2 million to kill the oversight bill, Thompson testified. General Morrison redirected military supplies to private contractors for a 15% cut. Judge Williams fixed 3 cases that I know of. By the end of his testimony, 17 more arrest warrants had been issued. The corruption was a cancer that had metastasized throughout the government. But it was Harrison's testimony that provided the most chilling moment. Taking the stand in his orange jumpsuit, the former deputy director looked directly at Sarah. You think you've won? You've done exactly what they wanted. You've cut away the infected tissue so the body can survive. But the disease remains. M remains. And when they're done using you, you'll end up just like the others. Who is M? The prosecutor demanded. Harrison laughed. If I knew that, do you think I'd be sitting here? M is smoke, shadows, whispers in the dark. Sometimes I wondered if M was even one person or a committee, an organization, an AI. All I knew was that when M spoke, you listened or you disappeared. The judge called for order, but Harrison wasn't done. Ask Miller. Ask her why she really got that job offer. Ask her what she's really being recruited for. Sarah felt every eye in the courtroom turn to her. She kept her expression neutral, but inside, Harrison's words had hit their mark. The job offer from the DOJ had come too quickly, been too perfect. Full autonomy, unlimited resources, answer only to the Attorney General. Nobody got that kind of deal, especially not someone who'd operated outside the law. That night, Sarah met with the Attorney General in a secure location, a safe house that didn't officially exist. Attorney General Rebecca Torres was a small woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for being incorruptible. She'd survived 4 administrations and never had even a whisper of scandal. Harrison's testimony raised some questions, Torres said directly. So let me be clear. I don't know who M is. I don't take orders from shadows. The job offer is legitimate, and it comes from me alone. Why me specifically? Because you did what 17 federal agencies couldn't or wouldn't do. You found the truth and exposed it, regardless of personal cost. Torres leaned forward. But also because I think M is right about one thing. There are levels to this game we haven't seen yet. I need someone who can operate in those shadows without becoming corrupted by them. You want me to hunt M? I want you to hunt corruption wherever you find it. If that leads to M, so be it. If M turns out to be cleaning up messes we can't legally touch, maybe we look the other way. Gray areas, Miss Miller. That's where you'll be operating. Sarah considered for a long moment. It was a devil's bargain, official authority to operate in unofficial ways. But after seeing those children in the warehouse, after learning how deep the corruption went, she knew she couldn't walk away. I'll need a team. Done. My father is tactical advisor. He's retiring. He'll consult, Torres smiled slightly. Done. And Marcus Kane is liaison. Agent Kane has his own mission, but yes, he can work with you when needed. Sarah stood and extended her hand. Then I accept. They shook, and Sarah Miller officially became something that had no real title. A ghost in the machine, hunting other ghosts. 6 weeks later, Harrison was found dead in his cell. The official cause was suicide, But the autopsy revealed a synthetic poison that didn't exist in any database. His last meal had contained microscopic capsules that dissolved over exactly 40 days, releasing the toxin when no one would suspect murder. M's calling card, Sarah realized. Harrison had become a liability even in prison. The trials continued without him. Thompson received 25 years, broke down crying as the verdict was read. Porter got life without parole after the murder victims were added to his charges. The 43 other defendants received sentences ranging from 5 years to life. But for every criminal they convicted, 2 more seemed to emerge from the shadows. The corruption wasn't just a network, it was an ecosystem, self-sustaining and regenerating. Sarah's new office was in a building that didn't appear on any government directory. Her team consisted of 12 specialists, former military, FBI, NSA, even a reformed hacker who'd been given a choice between prison and service. They called themselves the Prometheus Group, taking the name from Patricia Chen's delirious warning about the Prometheus files. Their first major operation came 3 weeks after formation. A federal judge in Chicago had been making unusual rulings, always favoring specific corporations. The pattern was subtle, spread over years, but Sarah's analysis revealed the truth. The judge was being blackmailed with deepfake videos that appeared to show him in compromising situations with minors. The real perpetrator was a consortium of tech companies using AI-generated blackmail material to control dozens of officials. Sarah's team took them down in a coordinated strike across 7 states, arresting 34 people and freeing 18 blackmail victims. But on every laptop they seized, every server they accessed, they found the same thing. A single text file containing only the letter M. M is testing us, Sarah told her team during a debrief. Seeing what we're capable of, how we operate. These cases we're finding, they're being fed to us. Frank, who'd agreed to consult despite his retirement, studied the pattern of their cases on a large display. It's like someone's using us as antibodies, sending us to attack infections in the system. The question is, Kane added, are we being used for good, or are we being manipulated into removing M's competition? There was no easy answer. One evening, Sarah was working late in her office when her secure phone, the one only 5 people had the number for, rang. "Hello, Sarah." It was M's modulated voice. "Congratulations on Chicago. Very efficient." Sarah activated a recording device, though she suspected M would have countermeasures. "What do you want?" "To offer you the truth, the full truth, about why you were chosen, about what's really happening, about what's coming." "I'm listening." "Not over the phone. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m., the Lincoln Memorial. Come alone." "That's the most surveilled location in Washington." "Exactly. Public enough that you'll feel safe, crowded enough that we can talk privately. Don't bring your team, don't bring weapons. Just bring your analytical mind." The line went dead. Sarah stared at the phone. It was obviously a trap, but it was also an opportunity. M had been a ghost, a rumor, smoke and mirrors. This was the first time they'd offered a face-to-face meeting. She made her decision. The next night, Sarah stood at the Lincoln Memorial as tourists milled around taking photos. At exactly 9 p.m., a woman approached, middle-aged, professionally dressed, completely unremarkable except for her eyes. They were the sharpest, most intelligent eyes Sarah had ever seen. "Miss Miller, you can call me Mary. Not my real name, of course, but it will do. You're M? I'm M's representative. M doesn't meet anyone directly. Too dangerous for all concerned." They walked slowly around the memorial, 2 professionals having what looked like a casual conversation. "Why reveal yourself now?" Sarah asked. "Because Harrison's trial exposed too much. Other nations are sniffing around, looking for weaknesses to exploit. We need someone like you to maintain balance." Balance. That's what you call letting corruption flourish. I call it managing inevitable human nature. Corruption is like cancer. You can't cure it, only manage it. Cut out too much too fast, and you kill the patient. Let it grow unchecked, and it kills the patient. We maintain the balance. By deciding who lives and who dies, who succeeds and who fails. Mary stopped walking, facing the Lincoln statue. Do you know why this memorial exists? Because sometimes individuals must make impossible choices for the greater good. Lincoln suspended habeas corpus, authorized actions that were arguably illegal, all to preserve the Union. We do the same, just with more subtlety. You're comparing yourself to Lincoln. I'm comparing the necessity of pragmatism in governance. Your 6 months as a waitress, recording everything. That was pragmatic. Illegal, but pragmatic. We're not so different, you and us. Sarah felt the philosophical ground shifting under her feet. Those children in the warehouse were freed because of information we provided. Harrison's location, we gave you that. The evidence that convicted 43 criminals, we helped preserve it. We're not your enemy, Sarah. We're your complicated ally. What do you want from me? Continue doing what you're doing. Clean up the messes that need cleaning. We'll occasionally point you in useful directions. Think of it as a partnership. You get the criminals, we get the stability. And if I refuse, Mary smiled sadly. Then you become another brilliant analyst who couldn't accept that the world runs on compromise. Your choice. She handed Sarah a card, blank except for a phone number. When you're ready to accept reality, call, or don't. Either way, we'll be watching. Mary walked away, disappearing into the crowd of tourists. Sarah stood there, staring at the card, feeling the weight of decisions that would define not just her future but potentially the country's. M's representative just offered Sarah an impossible choice. Become part of the shadow system or fight it from the outside. But can she trust anything M says? Is this really about balance, or is there something darker at play? What would you do in Sarah's position? Later that night, Sarah sat in her apartment, a secure unit in a building owned by a CIA shell company, staring at the blank card. Frank sat across from her, having listened to her account of the meeting. It could all be lies, he said. Manipulation to get you to stop investigating. Or it could be the truth, which is somehow worse. Sarah set the card down. A shadow organization managing corruption like a garden, pruning here, fertilizing there. What are you going to do? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she picked up her secure phone and called her team. Emergency meeting, 1 hour. We have a new mission. What mission? Frank asked after she hung up. We're going to map M's entire network. Every operation they've influenced, every official they've controlled, every decision they've manipulated. If they want to play God with American democracy, they're going to do it in the light. Frank smiled proudly. That's my daughter. The Prometheus group worked through the night, pulling data from thousands of sources. Financial records, travel logs, communication patterns, statistical anomalies in government decisions. Slowly, a pattern emerged. M's influence was everywhere, but subtle. A procurement decision here, a regulation change there, a prosecution dropped, a investigation redirected. Never enough to be obvious, always just enough to maintain their version of balance. Jesus, Kane breathed, looking at the web of connections on their main display. They've been shaping policy for at least 20 years. 23, Sarah corrected, pointing to the earliest anomaly they'd found. Starting right after 9/11, when everyone was distracted by terrorism. The pattern was brilliant in its simplicity. M didn't control everything. That would be impossible and obvious. Instead, they controlled key nodes, decision-makers who could influence thousands of other decisions downstream. It was like acupuncture for the body politic. precise pressure at exact points to achieve desired outcomes. "Can we expose this?" one of the team members asked. Sarah studied the data. "Not without proof of who M actually is. Everything we have is circumstantial, patterns that could be explained as coincidence." Her phone buzzed. Another message from M. "Impressive work. You found in one night what Harrison couldn't see in 10 years. You're definitely the right choice." Sarah showed the message to her team. "They're watching us right now." Everyone looked around nervously, suddenly aware that their secure facility might not be secure at all. "Let them watch," Sarah said loudly, addressing the hidden listeners as much as her team. "Because we're going to do something they don't expect. We're going to ignore them." Kane looked confused. "What?" "M feeds on attention, on being the mysterious power behind the throne. So we're going to pretend they don't exist. We'll do our job, catch criminals, clean up corruption, and completely ignore any guidance they try to provide. Let's see how they react when they're not the center of attention." It was a risky strategy, but Sarah had profiled M through their actions. They were a narcissist, someone who needed to feel in control, needed to be acknowledged as the puppet master. Take that away, and they'd make mistakes. The strategy worked better than expected. Over the next 2 months, the Prometheus Group solved 17 major corruption cases without any help from M. They ignored the breadcrumbs M left, refused to follow the trails M illuminated, and began developing their own intelligence network. M's messages became more frequent, more insistent. "You're wasting resources. You're missing the bigger picture. This is childish." Sarah ignored them all. Then, one morning, she arrived at her office to find someone sitting in her chair. A man, elderly but sharp, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. "Miss Miller," he said calmly. "I'm M." Sarah's hand moved toward her weapon, but the man raised a hand. "Please. I'm 73 years old with a heart condition. Hardly a physical threat." "How did you get in here?" "I built this building. Well, my company did, through 17 shell corporations and a Pentagon black budget allocation." He stood slowly. "My name is Michael Rothschild. Yes, those Rothschilds, though we prefer to keep a low profile these days." Sarah's mind raced. The Rothschild banking family was legendary, conspiracy theorists' favorite boogeyman, but they'd largely retreated from public view decades ago. "You're admitting to being M?" "I'm admitting to being one of 7 people who collectively comprise what you call M. A council, if you will, of individuals with the resources and vision to keep democracy from eating itself." Vision. Is that what you call manipulating elections and blackmailing officials? "We've never manipulated an election. We've simply ensured that whoever wins understands certain realities. As for blackmail, we prefer to think of it as behavioral incentive." "You're monsters." Rothschild laughed, a dry sound like autumn leaves. "We're pragmatists. Do you know what would happen if we stopped? If we let corruption run completely unchecked or tried to eliminate it entirely? Chaos, economic collapse, possibly civil war. We maintain the balance that keeps 300 million people from tearing each other apart." "That's not your decision to make." "Isn't it? Who else would make it? Politicians who think in 2-year cycles? Corporations that think in quarterly profits? The mob of social media that thinks in outrage clicks?" He moved toward the window, looking out at Washington. "Someone has to think long-term. Someone has to make the hard choices. Like imprisoning children to control their parents." Rothschild's face darkened. "That was Harrison exceeding his authority. We terminated him for it." "You murdered him." "We executed a traitor who was selling state secrets and torturing children. Due process is a luxury we can't always afford." Sarah felt the certainty of her position wavering. Everything Rothschild said was wrong, anti-democratic, dangerous. But she couldn't deny the logic within the madness. "What do you want?" she asked finally. "Join us. Become the 8th member of the council. Your youth, your skills, your uncompromising ethics. We need that perspective. Help us be better while we help you be effective. And if I refuse, then you continue as you are, and we continue as we are, and occasionally our paths cross. But imagine what you could accomplish with our resources. Every criminal you've wanted to catch but couldn't because of jurisdiction. Every corrupt official protected by political connection. Every injustice that the law can't touch. We could help you reach them all." It was the ultimate temptation. The power to actually fix things, to cut through red tape and politics and make real change. All she had to do was join the shadow system she'd spent months fighting. "I need time to think." Take all the time you need. But remember, every day you delay is another day criminals walk free because you didn't have the resources to stop them. Rothschild walked past her toward the door, pausing beside her. "Your father is a good man. It would be a shame if his retirement was disrupted by revelations about certain actions he took in Afghanistan. Actions that were classified, but not exactly legal." Sarah's blood went cold. "Are you threatening my father?" "I'm demonstrating the burden of knowledge. We know everything about everyone, Miss Miller. It's not a threat. It's a reality. The question is whether you want to help guide how that knowledge is used." He left, and Sarah sank into her chair, the weight of the decision crushing her. That evening, she met with Frank, Kane, and Patricia Chen, who had recovered enough to return to limited duty. She told them everything about Rothschild's offer. "It's a deal with the devil," Patricia said immediately. "Join them, and you become them." "But if she doesn't join," Kane argued, "they continue operating without any moral check. At least if she's inside, she can influence them." Frank was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. "Sarah, when I was in Afghanistan, I had to make choices. Work with warlords who did terrible things because they were fighting worse people. Save some lives by sacrificing others. Every choice was wrong, but not choosing was worse." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that sometimes the only way to fight a corrupt system is from within. But you have to be stronger than the system, or it corrupts you too." Sarah spent 3 days thinking, analyzing, running scenarios. Every model she created showed the same result. M would continue with or without her, but with her, they might be directed toward actual justice rather than just stability. Finally, she called the number on the blank card. "I'll join," she said when Rothschild answered, "but with conditions." "Name them." "Full transparency about all operations. Veto power over any action that harms innocents. And my team continues to operate independently. They can investigate anyone, including the council." "Agreed," Sarah was surprised. "That easily?" "We're not monsters, Miss Miller. We're people trying to prevent monsters from taking over. Your conditions actually help us maintain our humanity." A week later, Sarah was flown to a location she couldn't identify. The plane windows were blacked out, her phone disabled. She found herself in a conference room that could have been anywhere, facing 7 people including Rothschild. The others were equally surprising. A former Supreme Court justice, a tech billionaire everyone thought had died 5 years ago, a general who'd supposedly retired to Montana, a senator who'd lost re-election but apparently kept the real power, a media mogul whose empire shaped public opinion, and surprisingly, Attorney General Torres. "You're part of this?" Sarah asked Torres. "For 6 years. How do you think you got such a generous deal for your new position? I've been advocating for someone like you to join us, someone with uncompromising ethics to keep us honest." The irony of that statement seems lost on you. The initiation was simple. No blood oaths or dramatic ceremonies. Just a promise to protect America from all threats, internal and external, by whatever means necessary. "Welcome to the Council," Rothschild said. Your first assignment is to review our operations and identify any that cross your ethical lines. We'll discuss and potentially terminate them. Sarah spent the next month reading thousands of files, each one a decision that had shaped history from the shadows. Some were clearly necessary: preventing a nuclear weapon from being sold to terrorists, stopping a plague from spreading, keeping economic collapses from spiraling into depressions. Others were harder to justify. Journalists silenced, politicians destroyed, businesses crushed. Each time there was a reason, a greater good argument, but the cost in individual lives was staggering. "This has to stop," Sarah said at the next council meeting, throwing a file on the table. "Operation Crimson Dawn. You destroyed an entire community in West Virginia to prevent them from revealing a chemical spill. That chemical spill would have triggered lawsuits that would have bankrupted the company, cost 50,000 jobs, and crashed the regional economy," the senator argued. "So you gave them all cancer instead." "We relocated them, provided medical care, compensated them generously. After poisoning them," the debate raged for hours. In the end, Sarah won a partial victory. Operation Crimson Dawn would be terminated, the victims given additional compensation, and the company would be forced to clean up the spill properly. It was a small victory, but it established something important. Sarah's voice mattered. The council wasn't just humoring her. They genuinely needed someone to challenge their decisions. Over the following months, Sarah lived a double life. By day, she ran the Prometheus Group, catching criminals and exposing corruption. By night, she sat with the council, helping decide which secrets to keep and which to reveal, which powers to check and which to enable. The weight of it was crushing. Every decision had massive ramifications. Save a whistleblower here, and a trade deal collapses, putting thousands out of work. Expose a corrupt senator there, and his replacement might be even worse. The calculations were endless, the moral compromises constant. But she also saw the good they did. Terrorist attacks prevented without the public ever knowing they were in danger. Pandemics stopped before they could spread. Economic manipulations by foreign powers neutralized before they could destroy savings and retirements. "We're not heroes," Rothschild told her one evening as they watched the sunset from a building that didn't officially exist. "We're janitors, cleaning up messes before they become disasters. It's thankless, morally ambiguous work. But someone has to do it. What happens when we become the mess?" Sarah asked. "Then hopefully someone like you stops us." The real test came 6 months later. The council received intelligence that a foreign power was planning to release a bioweapon in Los Angeles. The only way to stop it was to assassinate 6 foreign nationals on American soil, without trial, without due process. The council voted, 4 in favor, 2 against, 1 abstaining. Sarah was the deciding vote. She thought about the millions who would die if the bioweapon was released. She thought about the 6 people who would die to prevent it. She thought about the Constitution she'd sworn to protect and the values it represented. "No, we find another way." "There is no other way," the general insisted. "We've run every scenario, then we run them again. We're supposed to be the smartest people in the room, so let's be smart instead of just ruthless." They worked through the night, and Sarah found the alternative: a cyber attack that would disable the bioweapon without killing anyone. It was riskier, more complex, but it preserved both lives and principles. The attack succeeded. Los Angeles never knew how close it had come to disaster. The 6 foreign nationals were arrested on other charges and deported. The bioweapon was destroyed. "You were right," Torres told Sarah afterward. "We needed someone to remind us that the easy wrong choice isn't better than the hard right choice." But Sarah knew the real battles were just beginning. The council was a necessary evil in a world full of unnecessary ones, but that didn't make it good. It just made it better than the alternatives. Late one night, Alone in her office, Sarah pulled out a recorder, not unlike the pen she'd used as a waitress, and began documenting everything. Every decision, every operation, every member of the council. Not to expose them, not yet, but to ensure that someday, when the world was ready, the truth would be known, because that was the ultimate check on power, the knowledge that eventually history would judge. As she spoke into the recorder, she thought about that scared waitress in the bathroom, playing weak while being strong. She was still playing a role, just a different one. Instead of pretending to be powerless, she was pretending she could handle power without being corrupted by it. The phone on her desk rang. Another crisis, another decision, another compromise between ideals and reality. "This is Miller," she answered, already knowing that whatever came next would test her in ways she couldn't imagine. "Sarah," it was Frank's voice, tense and urgent, "you need to see the news." She turned on the television to see her own face staring back at her. The headline read, "Secret Recording Reveals Government Shadow Council Controlling America." Someone had leaked everything. The council, the operations, her involvement. The recording was from her first council meeting, her voice clearly identifying her. Sarah felt the floor drop out from under her. She'd been so careful, but someone had been more careful. Someone had been recording the recorders. Her phone exploded with calls. The council members, her team, reporters, federal agents. The secret world she'd been living in had just been dragged into the light, and she was at the center of the explosion. But as the chaos erupted around her, Sarah noticed something. The leak was selective. It revealed the council's existence, but not its members except for her. It exposed some operations, but not the most sensitive ones. It was designed to destroy her while preserving the council itself. She'd been set up. But by whom? Her secure phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "The council no longer requires your services. Consider this your resignation. M." But Rothschild was calling her on another line, confused and angry about the leak. Which meant there was another M. There had always been another M. The council thought they were in control, but someone else was pulling their strings too. Sarah looked at the chaos on the television, at her life unraveling in real time, and did something unexpected. She smiled. Because now she was free. Free from the council, free from the compromises, free from the shadow games. And she had something none of them expected. The complete records of everything. She picked up her phone and called Frank. "Dad, pack a bag. We're going underground." "What's the plan?" "We're going to do what we do best. Expose the truth. All of it." As she walked out of her office for the last time, Sarah activated the upload she'd been preparing for months. The Prometheus files. Every document, every recording, every secret began transmitting to servers worldwide. "My name is Sarah Miller," she recorded as she left. "I was a waitress who became a federal agent, who became part of a shadow council that controls America. And now, I'm going to tell you everything." The upload was unstoppable, the truth finally free. 3 days later, the Prometheus files went live globally. Governments fell, arrests were made, and decades of shadow governance crumbled in hours. Sarah watched from a secure location as Rothschild and the others were arrested. But in the chaos of the revelations, one detail stood out. References to another council, one that operated above even the American shadow government. International, older, more powerful. The original M. Sarah looked at Frank, who'd stood by her through everything. "Ready for round 3? He smiled. "With you? Always." As they prepared for whatever came next, Sarah thought about that moment in the bathroom when Thompson had said, "Your daddy can't help you now." He'd been wrong then, and everyone who'd underestimated her since had been wrong too. Because Sarah Miller, waitress, analyst, agent, council member, and now the most wanted woman in America, had learned the most important lesson of all. Power wasn't about strength or position or secrecy. It was about truth, and she had more truth than anyone knew what to do with. The story that had begun with 3 men dragging a shy girl into a bathroom had become a global reckoning, and it was far from over.
You are not alone. Someone wants to hear you. Share your story. Thank you for watching to the end. Please like and subscribe to Stereo.